Beautiful people, today we will take a look at your accessory digestive organs. Of course, still this is part of your digestive system. Please note that your accessory digestive organs or your accessory digestive glands of the digestive system include your major salivary glands associated with the oral cavity. You have the parotid, you have the submandibular and sublingual glands. All of these three major salivary glands, they are paired organs. And then you have the pancreas, you have the liver, and then the gallbladder. Each of these glands, they have numerous functions, so helping the digestive process. And of course, their secretory products are delivered into the lumen of the alimentary tract by a system of ducts accordingly. That is for your accessory digestive organs. Let's take a look. You have the major salivary glands again that produces a saliva, or yes, they produce your saliva. And yes, what does your saliva do? It facilitates the process, sorry, of tasting food, initiates the digestion of food, and permit the swallowing of food. Please note that aside from that, these glands, the glands of your major salivary glands, also protect the body by secreting an antibacterial agent like lysozyme and lactoferrin, as well as as well as your secretory immunoglobulin A, or your IgA. For your pancreas, the pancreas manufactures bicarbonate-rich fluid that buffers the acidic chyme coming from the stomach. Okay. And yes, the pancreas also produces enzymes necessary for the digestion of fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. The exocrine secretions of the pancreas are released into the lumen of the duodenum. And yes, in addition to that, you have the islets of Langerhans of the pancreas that synthesize and release endocrine hormones like insulin, glucagon, somatostatin, gastrin, and pancreatic polypeptide. Okay, that is for the pancreas. While your liver, it produces your bile. Bile, this is the exocrine secretion of the liver, and this is required for the proper absorption of lipids. Aside from the synthesis of bile, your liver uh, functions your liver functions for metabolism of proteins, lipids, and carbohydrates, as well as a synthesis of blood proteins and coagulation factors. Also, your liver manufactures vitamins and detoxifies blood-borne toxins accordingly. And yes, you have the gallbladder. Your gallbladder, this one stores and concentrates the bile, and yes, it releases a bile into the lumen of the duodenum. Take a look at your saliva. Your saliva, this is the secretory product of your salivary glands. Accordingly, your major salivary glands produce approximately 700 to 1,100 ml of saliva per day, whereas your minor salivary glands contribute to at least 10% of the saliva uh, total daily output accordingly. Okay, and so yes, you have 700 to 1,100 ml per day. This is a large volume. Okay, with that, to provide such large volume or salivary output, accordingly, the major salivary glands have an extraordinary rich vascular supply. They have an extraordinary rich vascular supply. According to studies, it is estimated that the basal rate of blood flow to the salivary glands is 20 times greater than the flow of blood to the skeletal muscle. And yes, during high stimulation, during high stimulation of your salivary glands, the blood flow, the blood flow is correspondingly increased accordingly. Okay, and yes, going on to your functions of your saliva, you have lubrication, or it lubricates and cleanses the oral cavity. It has an antibacterial activity due to the presence of your lactoferrin, lysozyme, and other substances like your immunoglobulin A. It participates in the taste sensation by dissolving food material. It also initially digests food via the action of your salivary amylase or your thiamine, and then you have your salivary lipase. Also, it helps in swallowing by moistening the food and permitting the formation of bolus. And yes, it also participates in the clotting process and wound healing because of the clotting factors and epidermal growth factors that are present in the saliva. Okay, your saliva is manufactured by your acinar cells, and yes, you call that as your primary saliva. Again, the saliva that is manufactured by your acinar cells is your primary saliva, and yes, it is isotonic with the plasma. Okay, the primary saliva that is secreted or manufactured by your acinar cells is modified by the cells of the straight ducts by removing sodium and chloride ions from it and secretes potassium and bicarbonate into it. Okay, your straighted ducts will reabsorb sodium and chloride and then secrete potassium and bicarbonate into the saliva. Okay, thereby the altered secretion, you call it as secondary saliva. And yes, it is hypotonic. Okay, your salivary glands are paired glands. You have your parotid glands, sublingual, and submandibular glands. Of course, they are compound, or yes, they are branch or compound tubuloacinar glands whose connective tissue capsule provides a septa that subdivide the glands into lobes and lobules. Okay, individual acinus or acini are also invested by a thin connective tissue elements accordingly. The vascular and neural components of the glands reach the secretory units via the connective tissue framework. You have here an illustration of a salivary gland. Please note again that the major salivary glands, they possess a secretory and a duct portion. Of course, you have your secretory portion here, and then you have the duct portion here accordingly. Okay, the secretory portions of your salivary glands are arranged in tubules and acini, and these tubules and acini, or the secretory portions, are composed of three types of cells. You have namely your serous cells, mucous cells, and myoepithelial cells. Your serous cells your serous cells, okay, these are seromucous cells because they secrete both proteins and considerable amount of polysaccharides. And yes, they resemble a truncated pyramid and they have a single rounded basally located nuclei. Okay, aside from that, they also have a well-developed rough endoplasmic reticulum and a Golgi complex. Okay, please note they are capable of synthesis. They function for synthesis of substances. That is why they have a well-developed rough endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi complex. Aside from that, they also have numerous basal mitochondria and abundant apically situated secretory granules, which is rich in salivary amylase. Salivary amylase, which they secrete along with the secretory component of your secretory IgA molecule. Yes, along with lactoferrin, lysozyme, and thiocyanate. Okay, the basal aspect of the lateral cell membranes, they form tight junctions with each other. And yes, the apical to the tight junctions are intercellular canaliculi, which communicate with the lumen. A histologic section from your sublingual glands displaying a mucus acini, the M here, and it has a serous demilume accordingly. mucus cells are similar in shape to your serous cells. Their nuclei are also basally located but are flattened instead of being round. Kasi for your serous cells, the nuclei are round. Okay, the organelle population of your mucus cells differ from your serous cells because the mucus secretory cells have fewer mitochondria, a less extensive rough endoplasmic reticulum, and a considerable greater Golgi apparatus. Okay, which is, of course, this greater Golgi apparatus is indicative of greater carbohydrate component of their secretory product. Okay, the apical region of the cytoplasm is occupied by an abundant secretory granules housing mucinogen. This mucinogen, when released into the ducts of the gland, becomes hydrated and is known as mucin. Okay, for your mucinogen. Mucin, when released, it becomes hydrated or it gets in contact with water and then is converted to mucin. Mucin here is a slippery, viscous substance. Okay, the intercellular canaliculi and processes of the basal cell membranes of your mucus are much less extensive than those of your serous cells. Again, when mucin contacts and is intermixed with substances present in the oral cavity, it becomes known as mucus. Okay, again, when mucin contacts and is intermixed with substances present in the oral cavity, it becomes known as mucus. Okay, your myoepithelial cells, or this one is otherwise known as your basket cells, they share the basal lamina of your acinar cells. They have a cell body and a long several processes or several long processes, and these processes envelop the secretory acinus and intercalated ducts. Okay, the cell body of your myoepithelial cells houses a small complement of organelles in addition to the nuclei, and yes, it makes a hemidesmosomal attachments with the basal lamina. Okay, the cytoplasmic processes of your myoepithelial cells which form desmosomal contacts with your acinar and duct cells are rich in actin and myosin. Okay, please note they are rich in actin and myosin. Since they are rich in actin and myosin, you have already have a hint in mind that these myoepithelial cells they are capable of contraction. Yes, as the processes of your myoepithelial cells contract, they press on the acinus, facilitating the release of the secretory product into the ducts, into the lumen of the ducts accordingly. Okay? Portions of the major salivary glands, they are highly branched structures. Okay, the smallest branches of the system of ducts are your intercalated ducts, to which the secretory acini, the secretory acini are attached. These intercalated ducts or your terminal ducts are composed of a single layer of locuboidal cells and they possess some myoepithelial cells. Okay, some intercalated ducts merge with each other to form your striated ducts. Okay, these striated ducts they are composed of a single layer of cuboidal to low columnar cells. And yes, in your striated ducts, the basolateral membranes of the cells of your low-columnar or cuboidal cells are highly folded, subdividing the cytoplasm into longitudinal compartments that are occupied by an elongated mitochondria. Okay, and yes, this striated duct joins with each other, forming your intralobular ducts of increasing caliber. These ones are surrounded by more abundant connective tissue elements. Okay, ducts arising from the lobules unite to form your interlobular duct, which in turn form your intralobar and then into interlobar ducts. Okay, the terminal duct of the gland delivers saliva into the oral cavity. Okay, so yes, from your intercalated ducts, going to your striated ducts, going to your intralobar ducts, to your interlobular ducts, to your intralobar to interlobar. Okay, and of course, again, the terminal duct delivers your secretion, the saliva, to the oral cavity. Okay, let's take a look. Your parotid glands, they are paired. Largest of your salivary glands, and it weighs about 20 to 30 grams each. But accordingly, it is the largest, but it produces only approximately 30% of the total saliva output. Okay? Although, sabi natin kanina, your parotid gland is said to be, is said to produce purely serous secretion, the secretory product does have a mucus component. Okay, the saliva that is produced by the parotid gland has high levels of enzyme. Okay, it has high levels of salivary amylase as well as secretory immunoglobulin A. And again, your salivary amylase here is important or responsible for the digestion of carbohydrates in the buccal cavity. Okay, the capsule of your parotid gland is well developed and it forms a numerous septa. The septa subdivides the glands into lobes and lobules. Okay? And so same the duct system of your parotid gland, parehas po sa nabanggit natin kanina. Okay, it is nice to know that accordingly, by the 40 years of age, by the 40th year of age, the gland or your parotid gland becomes invaded by adipose tissue, which spreads from the connective tissue into the glandular parenchyma. And yes, you have your sublingual gland. This sublingual gland is very small and are composed mostly of mucus acini with serous demillions, and they produce a meat. Lingual gland, again, this is the smallest of your three major salivary glands. It is almond-shaped and weighs only 2 to 3 grams. And yes, it produces 5% of the total salivary output. Okay, the gland is composed of mucous tubular secretory units, and yes, many of which these mucous tubular secretory units, many of these are capped by a small cluster of serous cells. This small cluster of serous cells that caps your mucous secretory units, they are called as your serous demilluns. Okay, your serous demilluns, they are small clusters of serous cells that cap your mucous secretory unit. The sublingual gland, it has a slender connective tissue capsule, and its duct system does not form a terminal duct accordingly. Instead, several ducts open into the floor of the mouth and into the duct of the submandibular glands, the saliva. Your submandibular gland here, although it is 12 to 15 grams in weight, it produces approximately 60% of the total salivary output. Okay, siya po ang pinakamarami. About 90% of the acini produce serous saliva, and the remaining produce or manufacture mucous saliva. Okay, the striated ducts of your submandibular glands are much longer than those of the parotid and sublingual glands accordingly. And yes, the connective tissue capsule of the submandibular gland is also extensive and it forms an abundant septa. The septa again subdivide the gland into lobes and lobules. Accordingly, fatty infiltration of the connective tissue elements into the parenchyma is evident by midlife. Histologic section coming from your submandibular glands. You have your SD, your serous demiluns, and yes, you have your septa here. Okay, you have your secretory acini present also. Of course, the M here, these are your mucus cells. Pancreas. Accordingly, the pancreas is situated on the posterior body wall, deep to the peritoneum, and it has four regions. You have your uncinate process, the head, the body, and the tail. And yes, it is about 25 centimeters long, 5 centimeters wide, and 1 to 2 centimeters, 10 centimeters in thickness. And yes, it weighs about 150 grams. It has a connective tissue capsule that forms the septa. This septa then subdivide the glands into lobules. The vascular and nerve supply of the pancreas, as well as the system of ducts, travel in the connective tissue compartments. Okay, the pancreas has a exocrine and endocrine secretions. So the endocrine components of the pancreas is your islets of Langerhans. They are scattered among the exocrine secretory acini. Yes, napag-usapan naman na natin yan, your islets of Langerhans when we talk about your endocrine system. Okay? Your pancreas produces a daily 1,200 ml of bicarbonate-rich fluid. This fluid contains digestive proenzymes. And yes, accordingly, 40 to 50 acinar cells form a round to oval acinus whose lumen is occupied by 3 or 4 centroacinar cells, the beginning of the duct system of the pancreas. Okay, your centroacinar cells, that is the beginning of the duct system of the pancreas. The presence of your centroacinar cells in the center of the acinus, this is the distinguishing characteristic of your pancreas. This is an illustration of your pancreas. Okay, you have your pancreatic acinus, you have your centroacinar cells, that is the beginning of the pancreatic duct. Okay, each acinar cell accordingly is shaped like a truncated pyramid. Okay, your acinar cell is shaped like a truncated pyramid. Its base is positioned on the basal lamina that separates your acinar cells from the connective tissue compartment accordingly. It has a round nucleus that is basally located and is surrounded by a basophilic cytoplasm. The apex of the cell or the apex of your acinar cells facing the lumen of the acinus is filled with proenzyme containing secretory granules. Okay? And yes, the duct system of the pancreas begin within the center of the acinus again with the terminus of your intercalated ducts. This is your intercalated ducts is composed of pale low cuboidal centroacinar cells accordingly. Okay, these centroacinar cells and intercalated ducts, they both have receptors on their basal plasma membrane for the hormone secretin. Okay, this hormone secretin comes from your diffuse neuroendocrine system cells of the small intestine. Aside from secretin, it also has a receptor to acetylcholine. Your acetylcholine here is released by your postganglionic parasympathetic fibers. Okay? Your intercalated ducts, they join each other to form your larger intralobular ducts, several of which will converge to form interlobular These interlobular ducts are surrounded by a considerable amount of connective tissue and deliver their contents into the main pancreatic duct. This main pancreatic duct joins your common bile duct before opening in the duodenum at the papilla of Vater accordingly. Endocrine pancreas, your islets of Langerhans. Each of your islets of Langerhans is richly vascularized spherical conglomeration of approximately 3,000 cells. And yes, there are approximately 1 to 2 million islets distributed throughout the human pancreas. And this one again constitute your endocrine pancreas. Please note that the tail, the tail of the pancreas has somewhat greater number of islets than the remaining regions. Each islet is about 300 micrometers in diameter and is surrounded by reticular fibers which also enter the substance of the islet to encircle the network of capillaries that pervade the islet accordingly. Okay, again, your reticular fiber, this one is, I mean, it provides a supportive meshwork to your tissues. Okay, there are 5 types of cells that compose the parenchyma of each islet of Langerhans. You have here your beta cells, your alpha cells, your delta cells, and then you have your pancreatic polypeptide cells and your G cells. Please note that these cells cannot be differentiated from one another by routine histological examination. But you can identify them using immunocytochemical procedures accordingly. You can also employ electron microscopy to distinguish the various cells, no? Especially the size and electron density of the granules of these cells. Okay, you have here a histologic section coming from the pancreas. Okay, of course, you have here, this is your pancreatic islet. This is a pancreatic islet, and a pancreatic islet. Okay, you have a centroacinar cells here, and then the following. Okay, your cells of the islet of Langerhans produce insulin, ghrelin, amylin, glucagon, somatostatin, gastrin, and pancreatic polypeptide. Your insulin and glucagon, they are secreted in greatest amount. Okay, they are secreted in greatest amount. Your arterial blood supply to the pancreas, this one is separate for endocrine pancreas and exocrine pancreas. However, the venous drainage is the same. Again, of your pancreas. I mean of a pancreatic islet. This is a pancreatic islet. Okay, a pancreatic islet, it is rich in sinusoid. Okay, it is rich in sinusoid. You have a capillary here, you have a capillary, and then of course you have a connective tissue capsule separating them. Okay, of course you have your centroacinar cells. This is the beginning of the duct system of your duct system of pancreas. Okay, another illustration, no, showing you again your pancreatic islet, a centrally located artery, and then your intercalated duct, your centroacinar cells. You have here an illustration showing you the flow of secretion, no, in your exocrine pancreas. Okay, of course, you have here your acinar cells. Okay, and then, yes, the apical portion, it has rich in secretion. Okay, and then, yes, going to your, what you call this, intercalated ducts, to your interlobular ducts. Okay, okay, you have here your liver. Your liver, your liver weighs approximately 1,500 grams, and this is the largest gland in the body, largest gland located inside. Okay, it is located in the upper right hand, right quadrant of the abdominal cavity, just inferior or just below the diaphragm. Okay, the liver is subdivided into four lobes. You have the right, the left, the quadrate, and the caudate, of which your right and left, it constitutes the bulk of the liver. Okay, similar to the pancreas, the liver has an endocrine and exocrine function. But then, unlike the pancreas, the cells, okay, they say you have the same cells that is responsible in the exocrine and endocrine secretion. Okay, your hepatocyte, it is responsible for the formation of liver's exocrine secretion, which is the bile, and its numerous endocrine secretion. Okay, and so aside from that, your liver, okay, or your hepatocytes, they convert noxious substances, or they detoxify substances. Okay, they convert noxious substances into non-toxic materials that are excreted in the bile. Again, your liver is enveloped by your peritoneum, and yes, it forms a simple squamous covering epithelium covering over the dense, irregular, collagenous connective tissue. Liver is supplied with oxygenated blood by your hepatic artery. And yes, the blood is drained by your hepatic veins into the inferior vena cava. The portal vein supplies the liver with nutrient-rich blood. Okay? Secretions of your liver, they are carried by your bile canaliculi to your extrahepatic biliary apparatus, no? Anatomically, sabi natin earlier, the liver is divided into right, left, quadrate, and yes, lobes, no? This functional segmentation of the liver corresponds to the blood supply and the drainage of bile accordingly. Okay? And yes, sabi natin earlier, your liver is enclosed by a connective tissue capsule. Okay? Your liver is enclosed by a connective tissue capsule known as your Gleason's capsule. And this connective tissue extends into the parenchyma of the liver along with branches of portal veins also. Okay, reticular fibers, your reticular fibers, they form a network in the liver to support the liver parenchyma. And yes, these reticular fibers, they are argentophilic. Okay, and so, or yes, they take up stains, silver stains, or to visualize these reticular fibers, you need to uh, employ your silver impregnation methods to visualize reticular fibers. Okay, the liver parenchyma consists of liver cells. You call them as your hepatocytes. Okay, your hepatocytes, these are 20 to 30 micrometers in size, and they are polygonal cells. They are large polygonal cells. Okay, the nuclei of your hepatocytes are large, spherical, and are present at the center. Okay, accordingly, the nuclei shows a huge chromatin, euchromatin, sorry. The nuclei show a huge euchromatin. Okay, sabi natin, when we talk about your euchromatin, it is capable, it can undergo transcription. That is why with this, since it has euchromatin, it shows a huge amount of euchromatin. The cells, your hepatocytes, are metabolically active. They are metabolically active. They synthesize proteins. Okay? The nuclei also show 1 to 2 nucleoli, and many hepatocytes are binucleated. The lifespan of your hepatocytes are 5 months. Okay, accordingly, your cytoplasm is slightly acidophilic. The cytoplasm of your hepatocytes is slightly acidophilic. Okay, slightly acidophilic. Yes, the regeneration capacity of your liver, okay, it has, okay, your hepatocyte, it has a regeneration capability, but limited. Yes, your hepatocytes, they show surfaces, cell surfaces. First, you have your sinusoidal surface, and then you have your canalicular surface, and then you have your intercellular surface. Your sinusoidal surface faces adjoining sinusoids, or yes, it faces your what you call this sinusoidal capillaries. This surface of the hepatocytes show microvilli that project into the space of this. And yes, the microvilli increases surface area of cells for transport of nutrients across the hepatocytes. And then you have your canalicular surface. This one forms the wall of your bile canaliculus. It is 0.5 micrometers in diameter. Okay, your bile canaliculi, they are separated from the remaining intercellular spaces by tight junctions. And then you have your intercellular surface. This one is the surface that face toward adjacent hepatocyte. Blood supplies of the liver. Again, the liver has a dual blood supply through your hepatic portal vein and your hepatic artery. Your hepatic portal vein carry the nutrients and toxic materials absorbed from the intestines, blood from the spleen, and pancreas. Okay, again, your hepatic portal vein, it has a nutrient-rich supply. And yes, it accounts for 75% of the blood the moving inside the liver. While your hepatic artery, it supplies the liver with oxygenated blood and it accounts for 25%. Okay, the liver produces bile that is drained by the bile canaliculi, going to your hepatic ducts and finally enters the extra hepatic biliary apparatus. So, please note that your liver, it has a portal triad na sinasabi. Okay? And so this portal triad is this portal triad or branches of your hepatic artery, hepatic portal vein, and bile ductule run together to form your portal triad. Okay, they form your portal triad. Please note that the central vein or your hepatic vein do not form a part of the portal triad. Again, it does not form part of the portal triad. Again, hepatic artery, branches of the hepatic artery, branch of the hepatic portal vein, and branch of the bile ductule, they together they form the portal triad. Okay? The blood from the portal vein and hepatic artery enter into hepatic sinusoids. They enter into hepatic sinusoids, and these hepatic sinusoids drain into the central vein, to your sublobular vein, going to your hepatic vein, and finally into the inferior vena cava. Please note that your veins or your hepatic veins do not have valves. Okay, they do not have valves. Structural organization of the liver form liver lobules. Okay, your liver lobules, they are classified into three. Okay, you have your classical liver lobules, you have your portal lobule, and your liver acinus. Your classical liver lobule is a hexagonal mass with a central vein at the center, and this is surrounded by radiating anastomosing plates or cords of hepatocytes. Okay, Adjacent plates of hepatocytes are separated by sinusoids. Between the adjacent classical lobule, there is a small quantity of connective tissue with portal triad is present. Okay, there is a small quantity of connective tissue with portal triad that is present between the adjacent classical lobule. At the angle of the hexagon for your, yes, at the angle of the hexagon, your portal triad runs in portal canals in the connective tissue area. You also have this space of Moll. This is the space between the connective tissue stroma of portal canals and the outermost hepatocytes. This space of Moll is also called as your periportal space of Moll. It is the site for lymph formation in the liver. It is also the site for lymph formation in the liver. Portal lobule. Your portal lobule is a triangular area of liver parenchyma around each portal triad. Okay, it is considered as the functional lobule as bile duct lies at the center. Again, functional lobule because bile duct lies at the center accordingly. But then your central veins lie at the corners of the portal lobule. Have your liver acinus. Your liver acinus, it is the structural and functional unit of your liver. Okay, functional and structural unit of the liver. And yes, it has two axes. You have your short axis that is located between two closest portal triads and a long axis that is located between two closest central veins. Also, it has three zones. So you have the zone 1, zone 2, 3, yeah, zone 1, 2, and 3. Zone 1, it is located near to portal triads. This zone 1 receives more oxygenated blood and it is exposed to more toxins. Your zone 2, it lies between zone 1 and zone 3, and your zone 3, it lies near the central veins. It lies near the central veins and it receives less oxygenated blood and is more prone to hypoxic injuries. That is for your zone 3 of your liver acid. You have here your three liver lobules. You have your classical here. Your classical lobule, okay, it is hexagonal and you have a central vein located at the center. And then your portal triad are located at the angles of the lobule. Angles of the lobule, portal triad, portal triad, portal triad, portal triad, portal triad. And then you have your portal lobule. Your portal lobule, your triangular portal triad is located at the center. Okay? Triangular portal triad is located at the center. Okay, and then you have three central veins at the corner. Central vein, central vein, central vein. That is for your portal lobule. And then you have your liver acinus, which is oval in shape, and the portal triad are located at the sorry, at the periphery, and your central venule at ends. Okay, you have a short axis and then you have the long axis. Okay, of course, you have the portal triad, central venule. Okay, liver sinusoids. Your liver sinusoids are lined by discontinuous endothelium with discontinuous basal lamina. Okay, and then you have an stellate sinusoidal macrophage. A combination of such, okay, makes the sinusoidal liver sinusoid different from other sinusoid. There is also this space of disc that separates epithelium from the underlying hepatocytes. Okay, and yes, the microvilli of your hepatocytes project into the space of disc. Please note that there is no significant barrier between blood and hepatocytes because of large gaps between adjacent endothelial cells in the discontinuous basal lamina of the endothelium. Your space of this is also the site for hematopoiesis and fetal life. Again, your space of this accordingly is the site of hematopoiesis in fetal life. And then you have your hepatic stellate cells or your I2 cells. These are mesenchymal cells in origin. And yes, they lie in the perisinusoidal space of disc. And yes, what do? They are involved in the storage of vitamins A and lipids. Okay, and so please note that in many liver disorders, your I2 cells lose their storage function and get converted into myofibroblasts that ultimately result in liver fibrosis. The liver, you have your hepatocytes. Your hepatocytes, they are from the cords or plates of the liver. They are located in the cords or plates of the liver. And what do? They function for the production of bile, detoxification of toxic chemicals, and storage of glycogen. You have your Kupffer cells. They are located in the lining of sinusoids. Okay, they are located in the lining of sinusoids. And what do? They phagocytose substances. Okay, and yes, you have your I2 cells or your hepatic stellate cells. They are located in the perisinusoidal space of this, and they function for the storage of vitamin A and lipids. And yes, again, they become myofibroblasts in case of liver diseases. And yes, this myofibroblasts will progress to form your liver fibrosis. Okay, and then you have your sinusoidal endothelium, of course, the lining of your sinusoids. Okay, and so for your sinusoidal endothelium, they facilitate the transport of substances. And then your hematopoietic cells, they are located in the perisinusoidal space of this, and they function for hematopoiesis in fetal life. Please note this is in fetal life. Onto your gallbladder, let's take a look at your intrahepatic biliary tree. Your intrahepatic biliary tree drains your exocrine liver. Of course, the secretion is bile. Of course, it drains your bile and conveys it to your extrahepatic biliary tree to the right and left hepatic ducts. Okay, and so your intrahepatic biliary tree consists of the following. Of course, you have the bile canaliculi. This bile canaliculi is formed between adjacent surface of hepatocytes. And then you have your intralobular ductules or your intrahepatic ductules or canals of Herring. Your bile canaliculi will drain the bile into your intralobular ductules. And yes, these intralobular ductules or your canals of Herring, they are lined by simple cuboidal epithelium. And yes, from intralobular ductules going to your interlobular ducts. Your intralobular ducts will drain into the interlobular ducts that run through the interlobular connective tissue septa. And yes, these ducts are lined by simple cuboidal to columnar epithelium, and they form part of the portal triad. And then you have your right and left hepatic ducts. Your interlobular ducts join to form the right and left hepatic ducts that later join to form common hepatic ducts outside the liver. Okay? Yes, please note that your bile flows centrapetally opposite to the flow of blood in the sinusoids. Okay? The bile flows away from the central vein toward the portal triad. Okay, you have here an illustration showing you your yes, your portal vein, your bile duct, and then you have your hepatic arteries. Okay, and so you have the portal triad present here, and then you have your interlobular septum. You have your sinusoids present. Okay, you have the sinusoids and plates of hepatic cells. Plates of hepatic cells, itong mga ito po, these are hepatocytes. Hepatocytes po itong mga to. Hepatocytes, hepatocytes. Okay? And yes, again, you have your central vein, you have your bile canaliculi accordingly, and then of course you have your sinusoids. Your sinusoids, hepatic plates, of course, these ones, your these ones are hepatic cells or liver or your hepatocytes. Okay, you have here your what they call this hepatic lobule, di ba? Okay, and so showing you your portal area. Please note again that your portal triad is made of your portal triad is made of your portal vein, bile duct, and hepatic artery. Portal vein, bile duct, and hepatic artery, and then you have your central vein. Okay. So again, this one is an illustration showing you your hepatic acini, your classical lobule, and then your portal lobule. Okay, and so yes, please note that your cells, your hepatocytes, they are arranged in cords or plates in the liver. Okay, your hepatocytes, these are 5 to 12 sided polygonal cells. Okay, and yes, what do they do? Again, they constitute only 60% of the total cell number, but they account for 75% of the weight of the liver. And yes, they manufacture bile, which is modified by the epithelial cells lining the bile ducts and gallbladder and become known as bile. Okay, you have here an illustration of the histologic naman, okay, of your liver. You have the nuclei of a hepatocyte, okay, sinusoid, and then you have a Kupffer cell. Your gallbladder. Your gallbladder is a small pear-shaped organ situated on the inferior aspect of the liver. Okay, it is about 10 centimeter in length and 4 centimeter in cross section and can store about 70 ml of bile. This organ accordingly resembles a sac with a single opening, and the bulk of the organ forms the body, and the opening accordingly. The opening is continuous with the cystic duct accordingly. Okay, and so the gallbladder, it has the walls of the gallbladder has an epithelium, a lamina propria, a smooth muscle, and a serosa or adventitia. The mucosa of an empty gallbladder is highly folded into tall parallel ridges. As the gallbladder becomes distended with bile, these what they call this folded or this foldings or parallel ridges is reduced to a few short folds and the mucosa becomes relatively smooth. Okay, the lumen of the gallbladder is lined by a simple columnar epithelium and is composed of two types of cells. You have your clear cells and brush cells. Okay, for this one, the cells of your gallbladder, they have an oval nuclei that is basally located and a supranuclear cytoplasm that displays occasional secretory granules containing mucinogen. Okay, the lamina propria is highly vascularized, loose connective tissue. Okay, with rich elastic and collagen fibers. Okay, in the neck of the gallbladder, accordingly, the lamina propria houses simple tubuloacinar glands. These tubuloacinar glands produce a small amount of mucus to lubricate the lumen of the constricted region. Of the gallbladder, it houses simple tubuloacinar glands. Okay, the gallbladder also consists of bundles of smooth muscle cells with interspersed or interspaced collagen and elastic fibers. Okay, the smooth muscle cells are not organized like the gut. Okay, they run in different directions. No, there is no such thing as outer circular or inner longitudinal ganon. Okay, because they are not organized. Okay, most of the smooth muscle are obliquely oriented, while the others are longitudinally oriented. Okay. You also have few diverticulum of the mucosa which extend into the muscularis externa. Okay, and so for and yes, there is a connective tissue adventitia that is attached to the Gleason capsule of the liver, and then a non-attached surface of the gallbladder is invested by the peritoneum. This is your lumen of the gallbladder showing you your mucosal folds. Okay, simple columnar epithelium pa rin po. Okay, you have your elastic fibers and then you have a connective tissue serosa. Okay, this is your gallbladder. Of course, your epithelium is simple columnar. Yes, let's take a look at your extrahepatic ducts. Okay, the right and left hepatic duct will unite to form the common hepatic duct, which is joined by the cystic duct arising from the gallbladder. The merger of your common hepatic duct and your cystic duct will form your common bile duct, which is 7 to 8 centimeters in length. This common bile duct will fuse with the pancreatic duct to form your ampulla of Vater. The ampulla of Vater opens at the duodenal papilla into the lumen of the duodenum. The opening of the common bile duct and of the pancreatic duct is controlled by a complex of four sphincter muscles. You have your these four sphincter muscles are sphincter cholecystocus, sphincter pancreaticus, sphincter ampullae, and fasciculus longitudinalis accordingly. And yes, collectively, these four sphincter muscles, you call them as your sphincter of OD, sphincter of OD. I guess that's it for your accessory digestive organs. Thank you. Thank you for reaching this part of the video. And yes, this has been Gael, reminding you to live fully, love deeply, laugh often, keep learning, and never forget to enjoy the ride. Thank you. See you around.